Excel accounting practice problem. Enter payroll for second month, part number 2. Get ready, because we're about to excel. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. In prior presentations, we put together the worksheet from a blank sheet, now continuing to enter transactions into it. If you have access to it, there's 2 tabs on down below, an example tab and a practice tab. The practice tab starting out where we left off last time, the example tab in essence being an answer key. Let's take a look at it now. In prior presentation, we put together our information for basically a payroll ledger that we will now use to populate our entry for the second month of, in essence, processing the payroll, which will look something like this. We're going to be processing a separate transaction for each paycheck, and then we'll be entering the payroll liability for the payroll taxes on the employer payroll taxes. Let's go to the practice tab and take a look at it. Let's do some cleanup work first. I'm going to hide some cells on the left-hand side, going from the skinny all the way to the left. Right-click and hide. We didn't enter any transactions last time, but I didn't clean up the ending and beginning balances. So I'm going to take these ending balances that we had 2 presentations ago and copy that, make that our beginning balances for our starting point, pasting them special 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to delete the activity in the middle so we can focus in on where we want to be at this point in time. Let's go then. I'm going to hide some cells all the way over to where our payroll ledger is so we can see it on a side-by-side with our journal entry, making the construction of the journal entry as easy as possible. So I'm going to go from the skinny all the way to where the payroll stuff was, all the way to the right over here. It's still going. There it is. That's where it is. That's where we want to be. And I'm going to right-click and hide that stuff, hide it. And so there we have it. Now we're down here on the second payroll. It's pretty much the same, but slightly different. We're looking down here. This is the information that you could get possibly if you were doing the payroll within like an accounting system, like a QuickBooks. It would generate these types of reports automatically as you process the payroll. If you have it all payroll set up properly and support the transactions for the payroll that will be posted when you process the payroll. Or if you were to have an outside person, company, such as an ADP or Paychex, do the payroll, you might get a report, something like this, that as part of the process. Then we would need to enter this, no matter which way you do it, this information would need to be going into our system. We could do it in a more summarized type of way in order to just get the financial statements correct and depend possibly on an ADP or a Paychex, an outside payroll company, to get the more detailed information to the employees, like for human resources purposes and so on, like the detail in the paycheck stubs and so on. Or we might have the more detail, in our particular accounting system, depending on how we set things up. So how we can put this into the system with journal entries, let's just walk through the journal entry. One way we could do it is have a separate journal entry for each of the paychecks that are in essence going out, and then another journal entry for the payroll taxes for the employer taxes. So for example, Adam's paycheck will put in place a debit to the expense of the gross pay, payroll expense. We will then credit the liability for these 3 items here, the net check decreasing then the checking account by the $3,549. We could then take Erica, which we will do, and debit the payroll expense for the $2,400, and then credit increase in the liability for the FICA, the Medicare, and the Social Security, and the federal income tax, net check decreasing the checking account. And that would then result in a total change of this total down below. Or we could just take this total of all the employees and enter a very simple transaction in, which would be just simply the gross of the net pay expense. So that would be payroll expense of the 6,983. And then we'd have a liability going up for these 3 items, and the net income then decreasing the decrease to, this would probably be net pay, or we'll call it net income. Net pay should be decreasing the checking account for the full amount. Now, if I did it that second way, I need to be careful of this item affecting the checking account, because as we've seen in the past, we would like things to be hitting the checking account in the same way we expect them to be clearing on the bank side of things, making the bank reconciliation easier to do. So if we were to group them together, we got to be careful that the bank reconciliation is going to be a little bit more difficult. We will enter them one at a time. And then we're also going to have this item down here with the employer taxes, which will generate a payroll liability, even though we have not yet paid it on our side over and above what we owe to the employees. That then would be increasing a liability by the 498, and the other side would be a payroll tax expense. And that would result, those transactions would result in a total liability of the 2,076. That's what we expect to see in the liabilities for this payroll, at least after we enter this transaction, adding to the amount that's currently in there from the last transaction of the 2,029. Okay, let's do it. We're going to say that we have on 228 the payroll expense down here, and not the tax, but the payroll expense. That's going to be equal to the gross pay. I'm going to start it out with Adam at the 4583. Then we're going to have the liability, payroll liability, that's going to go up. Payroll liability in the credit side, I'm going to say negative sum of the FIT, Social Security, and Medicare that we're taking from Adam. That's too much. That doesn't seem right. Negative sum. Let's try it again. Otra vez, por favor. We're taking this FIT, Social Security, and Medicare. Enter. That looks more proper, more correct. Let's then take the net check, is going to be decreasing the checking account. This is what we're actually going to be paying at this point. Let's do some indentation in the home tab, alignment indent. And then we'll do the negative sum plug formula, getting that 3549. That should match out what's the net check. Notice there could be rounding involved here. So we're dealing with pennies that we rounded out the 3572, and that doesn't match, does it? The 3572, because I'm down here on the 3549. The 3549, that matches the 3549 here. Okay, let's do the same thing for Erica before we post it. Same thing for Erica. We're going to say payroll expense. Payroll expense would be here. Erica's gross pay is equal to the gross pay. See if you could do it a little bit better this time. I kind of bobbled that last one up. 2,400. I almost want to do it again, but no. I'm sticking with it. We're going down to the payroll liability now. Payroll liability. That's going to be the negative sum of the FIT for Erica, Social Security, and Medicare. That's what we took from Erica, or never gave Erica, that even though she earned it, because the government made us do that. It's not our fault. It's not my fault. The government made me keep your money. That's negative sum plug formula. There we have that. There's the net check. Let's do an indentation, alignment, and indent. So now we're looking, the net check should match what we have on our payroll register, 1856. 1856 is going to be down here. That looks good. So that totals are going to be here. That should be the total of the two. So if I was to total these up, obviously these two would add up to the gross pay. The 3492 that was. So the total here on the gross pay was, hold on a second, gross pay of these two was, that was the average, the 6983. The 6983 should match the 6983 here, and then obviously these two are the liabilities. If I was holding control down, 1578, the 1578 matches what we have here for the liabilities, which would be the sum of these. Hold on a second. Would be the sum of these, 1578. And then, of course, the net check would be this, holding down control. And here, 5405. That 5405 matching here. Okay, so now let's do the employer journal entry. The employer tax, 228. We would also incur, and I would put this in another expense account to break out the employer taxes as opposed to the employee payroll information. That can make it a little bit easier when you're checking your numbers to, say, the 941 forms, which are the payroll tax forms on a quarterly basis, the 940 at the end of the year, and to the W-2s and the W-3s, it can be useful to break out the employer taxes and the employee earnings. And note that the employer taxes only include the taxes that are over and above the earnings of the employees. The employee taxes are not going to go in here, even though we are in essence going to pay these taxes. These taxes are never going to hit the income statement as an expense in the form of a payroll tax. They're going to be expensed as they are included in gross pay. The idea being that those are not our taxes. We're just the collection person forced to collect those taxes on their behalf. Whereas these are our taxes that are over and above what we agreed to pay the employee, and therefore they're going to be the payroll taxes and expensed, and I would put them in a separate category. So we're going to say that's going to be the payroll taxes then. Here, we're going to pick that up at the 498, and then the liability is going to go up. We have not yet paid those taxes, so payroll liability goes up. So there's the debit and the credit. Let's do some indentation. So let's record it now. Let's post it to the trial balance. I'm going to basically highlight these so we can focus our eyeballs on what we were doing. The payroll expenses first. Let's scroll down for this first one. For the first item that we are entering, payroll expense is going to be equal to that 4583, bringing the balance up on the month. 4583, year to date 11566. Then we have the payroll liability. Payroll liability is going to be here. We will say equals and point to the 1034, bringing the balance up to 3063 for both the current month and the year to date. And then the checking account up top, checking account is right there. So we're in the checking account in AC4 equals picking up that 3549, bringing the balance down to 99,829 for both the year to date and February. Let's do the next one. I'm going to make this one ungreenified or bluify it, however you want to see it. It's going to be that blue. If you don't have it, more colors. It would be in the standard area. There's the blue right there. The Excel is Fun Guy blue. And then we'll make this one green because that's what we are working on. So we want to focus our eyeballs on it. Payroll expense down here again, mirroring similar transaction. F2 plus F2. Scrolling over and picking up the 2,400. We got the current month at the 6983, year to date 13,966. The liability then. Liabilities in C18, F2 plus F2, picking up the 544, bringing the balance up to 3607, both year to date and February. Then we have the checking account. Checking out the checking, we're in AC4, F2 plus F2, scrolling down, picking up the 1856, enter. So now we're at the 973 on both the February and year to date. We're back in balance on down below. Let's now do the last one. I'm going to ungreenify this or bluify it, whatever you want to, whichever way you want to look at it. And then we're going to go down to the payroll expenses. Payroll expenses, posting it out. Payroll tax expense, I should say. This is the payroll tax expense. And the payroll liability going up again. Payroll liability AC18 F2 plus F2, picking up that 498, bringing the balance up to the 4105, back in balance on down below. Impact on the net income. We started at net income for the month of February, 5009. Then we decreased it 7,481 to a negative net loss, 2,473. On the year-to-date number, though, we were at the 12,436. Then we decreased it by that 7,481 to bring out still net income on the year-to-date 4,955. So then if we compare to our ledger over here, you can see our activity. So if we look at our payroll liability, for example, the total that we increased the payroll liability for is that 2,076. The last payroll liability for last month, where we were at before, 2,092, 2,029, we will have to pay this month. We'll do that in a future presentation. And then we'll have to pay this liability that we incurred during this payroll in the following month. That's how we'll basically be paying this off. We'll see that in the future. Now let's post this to the GL. To do so, we're going to have to unhide some cells. Go into AE and go into FY. AT to FY. right click and unhide. So there we have it. And now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to greenify this first one again so we can post it to the G to the L. Let's try to do these at the same time. Let's do this. I'll greenify this and this at the same time, and we'll get fancy and try to post it at the same time, see if we don't get messed up on it. So we're going to go to the payroll expense. That's an expense that's way over here. Assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. Payroll is going to be in CK5. We're looking at 228. Going to do two of them, 228. So we are in CL5 equals left until we hit the wall. Scrolling down to that 4583, enter. And then right underneath it and CL6, we're going to record the second journal entry at the same time. Scrolling over, we're going to pick up that 2400, enter. That brings the balance up to the 13,966 on the year to date. And the current activity, it would of course be the 6983. That should match what's on the trustee trial balance. Checking it out. So we've got then the 6983 on February, 13,966 on the year to date. We're out of balance up top on the GL. Let's then ungreenify that. Going to bring that back to blue, And then we've got the liability, which will be here. I'm holding down control here and down here. So we're going to record three things to the liability at the same time. Craziness is happening here, so pay attention. Focus, people. Focus. This has not been done in the history of our practice problem yet, I believe. We're attempting something completely new and untested. So we're in the payroll liability 228, 228, and 228. So then in cell BN5 equals left to the wall. Scrolling down, picking up that first one, 1034. Everything's going okay so far. Everything is B to the N, BN. We're in BN6. Left to the wall. Scrolling down. Picking up the second green one, that 544, and enter. Looks good. Hippies are just BN, man. But I like to be muy bien. Muy bien. BN. BN7 equals, scrolling down to the last green, picking up that 496, enter. There we have it. Everything is BN in the column of BN. And so now we have the total going up to the 4105. That should match what's on the trustee trial balance. So the trustee trial balance, does that match out here? That is good. BN column is BN. And so then we're going to then make that blue. And now let's go to the checking account. We got two things happening in the checking account at the same time. Checking out the checking. Let's check out the checking. We're going to say this is on 228 and 228. So we're in AH 16 equals left to the wall, picking up that 3549. Then in AH 17 equals left to the wall, second green item, 1856, bringing the balance up to the 97973. 97973 should match what's on the trial balance, and it does. One more thing, this should put us back in balance if we completed this highly difficult. The complexity level on this maneuver of posting was at a high degree of difficulty, and we've almost completed it. We're on now that's not the right green. Payroll tax expense. That's down here on the trial balance. So it's going to be all the way to the right on the GL, payroll tax expense. Looking for you, payroll tax expense. There it is. So we are in CK6, CK17 to 28, and then CL17 equals left to the wall. And then we're picking up that 498, enter. So that picks it up to the 972 on the year to date, 498 for the month of February. Checking it out to the trial balance over here. Does that check out? Can I put two checks next to it with a double check? 498 and 972. We're back in balance in the G to the L up top. So that looks good. I think everything has been posted. We don't have any subledgers. Let's go ahead and ungreenify that or bluify it. And this is where we're standing at this point with the trial balance after having completed that relatively high level of difficulty, both journal entry and posting procedure.